gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to Wait, What? Sports. Where were you, Dr. Robinson?
Yeah, that's y'all thing.
No, you've been on too many episodes now doing it with us. You are part of the beginning. Let's do it over.
I feel like we need that bass note.
Nope, come on.
Thing.
No.
Come on, your mic's on.
Proceed.
Your mic's on. Your mic's on. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Wait. What? Sports. I don't care how sad you sounded. You did it.
There is a reason why his other nickname is Eeyore.
That's true.
Hi, Amy. Hi, Gina.
Sorry.
You know, you actually almost give my brother a run for the money on that. Both of my brothers, I have one brother whose nickname is Eeyore. The other one, as he's become a parent,
has become more of an Eeyore.
Aww. I think only because of the lack of sleep.
Oh, well, that'll do it.
Can somebody nail my tail back on, please?
I love Eeyore. He's my favorite character. Okay, I'm Gina, in case you couldn't figure that out. And over to my right is the awesome, amazing, beautiful Miss Amy. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Gina.
And then always on the boards, Eeyore himself, Dr. Robinson.
Hello. Hello.
How's everybody today?
I'm good.
Yes?
You, Eli?
I'm great.
I've seen way too much of that guy. Not enough of you, Amy. What's going on in your world?
Well, you know, same old job, house, stuff.
Adulting. Stupidest decision we've ever made in our lives. But I digress.
I keep going, why did I want to be an adult when I was 15?
I don't understand. You know, I was watching, there's an episode of The Simpsons where, like, I forgot who said it, but they're like, that's why you're a kid, because you're stupid. Like, we just didn't know any better. That's what it comes down to. We just didn't know.
Speaking of not knowing, though, that actually is a great segue. Because,
ooh, that was an accident, but okay, go ahead.
I believe last time we had talked about that we were going to try to move on to something other than the baseball cheats and scandals, and we were actually going to try to bring you guys a tennis program for Wimbledon. We are still going to attempt that because we still have time.
However,
I know less than diddly squat about tennis.
I, for once, know a little bit more about something than you, which should scare everybody.
And I was sitting there on Thursday night after a whole week of extra stuff going on at work and not being able to think about anything, and went, holy shnikes, we're supposed to be recording.
Guess I should be starting to do some kind of research about this, huh?
We're supposed to be recording tennis. And I went, gee, how much do you know about tennis?
Fault. I got that much.
I know that love is a
15 love.
I know that love is a funny way of saying 0, and that's about it.
Yeah. Which is not enough to create a show.
No. And Thursday night, like 9 o'clock Thursday night through Sunday morning is not enough time to do research.
And, actually know what we're talking about. We've had enough stumbling over our own feet with the whole, was it hockey? So I think that's enough. We're going to be better prepared to do it when the time comes.
And so we are actually moving on to the second half of Cheats and Scandals in Baseball.
Part 2.
In order to give ourselves a little bit more time to work on a tennis show.
Yes.
Because Wimbledon isn't until the end of the month. So we have a little bit of time.
Yeah, we do. For some reason, I thought it was sooner than that, but this was the French Open that just passed.
It's still going on.
It's not over yet? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
They were still playing when I left the house anyways.
Gotcha. So. All I know is that Rafael Nadal beat the number one, whatever his name was, Jovic or something like that.
Djokovic, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I like Rafael Nadal, but... Okay, back on topic. Ding. I'll ding our bell for us. So, last time we talked about the Black Sox scandal. We talked about ways to cheat in baseball. So, corking the bat, sticky substances. Am I missing something?
No, I think... Oh, PEDs.
PEDs. That was a big one. How did I forget about that in the whole home run controversy between Mark McGwire and who was the other guy?
Sammy Sosa.
That's it. Listen, I did good to remember one of those two.
That whole 90s era ball thing.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, in most of our major sports, we will have lots of times where we talk about 90s era ball, because there's a whole lots of things in most of the sports that have changed between the 90s and today.
I wonder why the 90s was such a pivotal decade in sports. Like, was it just because things were becoming just more known about because of testing and stuff like that?
And I don't know that it was, I'm not necessarily even just talking about the PDs, but just like even the rules, because there's like 90s era football that changed a lot.
Yeah.
Football was much rougher in the 90s, and it kind of like led up through the ages to the 90s, and then like a rash of people with broken backs.
Right.
And they said, okay, that's it. We got to change the rules.
Something's going on. It's almost like those drug commercials where like you hear about like the side of like Johnson & Johnson baby powder causes cancer now, but how many decades have people been using it? So maybe it's just, it took that long for these things to start to manifest.
It's partly that, and part of it is probably a change in tastes, a change in attitudes.
Okay, I can see that.
Previously, even when players didn't make that much money, I mean, since the 60s, since the 70s, players have been making multi-millions in most of our major sports.
Right.
Male athletes, I should say, have been making multi-millions in most of our major sports. But before then, even when they weren't making that much, the whole idea was, well, they signed up for this.
Right. So what are you complaining about?
And it's something that's been turned on its head.
Yeah, like the whole no pain, no gain.
Right. So, but in baseball, 90s era is defined by the performance-enhancing drugs.
Right, right.
And those controversies. But we did end with the Black Sox. Just a quick recap of the Black Sox scandal. It was the 1919 World Series, and the White Sox were found to have taken money in order to throw the games. Mainly because a number of the players owed quite a significant amount of money to their bookies. So, yeah, back then there was no gambling rules.
Right.
I mean, baseball is a morally upstanding sport.
Okay. Are people involved?
And therefore, our players are morally upstanding people. When you and I watch A League of Their Own, you'll understand why I said that.
Okay.
So, even though they knew that there was lots of other things going on, and people are people, and you're not paying these people the equivalent of multi-millions of dollars.
Right.
I mean, they were getting maybe the equivalent of $1,000 a year.
Wow.
Okay. Now, if you think that the average person at the time was making like 3 cents an hour.
Right. That's, oh my God. Like, my brain just melts out of my ears thinking about it, but that's because I'm thinking about it in now time money.
Right. So if they 3 cents an hour equivalent in our raw currency would be the equivalent of, say, $3 an hour.
Okay.
But still, $3 an hour. I'm sorry to all those servers out there that are on tip wages and make $4.25 an hour plus tips. But if you are an untipped minimum wage worker, you're getting $9.50 or $9.75 an hour now.
Wow.
Okay. So $1,000 would be like $3,000 our money.
Right.
Yeah. It's not. So it's still not a lot.
You can't be mad at them for finding a way to like.
So when somebody offered them the equivalent of $78,000 to tank the series,
heck yeah, sure.
Especially the players that were not in debt to their bookies.
So they just got to bank all that money.
Right. And that's why Shoeless Joe Jackson was such a huge issue. Yeah. It's because he had all these kids, including Babe Ruth, looking up to him. And
you did this?
He admitted to doing this. And it became a huge cultural thing. It became such a big deal for baseball that they started enacting gambling rules.
Wow. Well, like you said, morally upstanding. They had to take a stance. They could not take a stance at that point.
Right. But those gambling rules brings us to probably the next major scandal that is still talked about all the time. Mm-hmm. And mainly it's talked about because of the chances for this person to get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Which is still an ongoing controversy, correct?
It is.
Will he ever be inducted?
It doesn't look like it. He's been banned for life, and it doesn't look like they're going to change it.
Okay.
But, you know, I was going to let you introduce the name of this player.
The one I know from wrestling, yeah. Because that is the first time I had heard that name. We, of course, are discussing Pete Rose.
Yes. So Pete Rose. Who is Pete Rose?
You got to tell me.
So some of you might be like Gina and were first introduced to him through WWF at the time.
World Wrestling Federation will always be what I call it. But anyway.
Or the WWE.
Thank you, WWE.
Anyway. Go ahead.
Yes, Eli likes us to use the current names of things even when we're discussing history. That would be like me calling the Austro-Hungarian Empire Germany and Austria. So anyways.
I can't.
I just made Eli take off his headphones and he's about to walk out the room.
He said, good luck recording the rest of the show on your own. Oh, okay, back to the topic.
I mean, at least he's no longer napping.
That's true. We got you awake now.
So anyways, Pete Rose, you also might know him from some commercials. He's been doing some commercials recently recent years.
Yeah.
I can't remember what companies they're for, but I remember being like, oh, he's doing commercials now.
Since our producer walked out the room.
But Pete Rose was a player and a player manager for the Cincinnati Reds.
Okay, that's his phone. Of course.
The moment Eli walks out of the room,
the whole show falls apart.
Starts buzzing and buzzing through our mics.
And of course, we're looking at ours like, it wasn't me. We'll get him when he comes back.
So, he was a player and a player manager for the Cincinnati Reds back in the 80s. And I believe the 70s. He was there during the Big Red Machine era.
Was he ever a player?
He was a player and a player manager.
Okay, gotcha.
So when we went over the clubhouse personnel, I forgot to mention that you sometimes not only have players that become managers. It doesn't happen as often now,
right?
But you can sometimes have player managers. I believe Cal Ripken was the last one.
So are they active players?
They are active players and managers.
How does that work?
Basically, it's usually somebody in the modern era. It's usually somebody who is working their way to retirement. They're in the last few years of their career. And they are looking to want to be a manager. And maybe they have been noticed by the head office that they have a lot of knowledge of the game and that the players trust their guidance.
Gotcha. So it's almost like a captain. Like, okay.
Okay. So sometimes they become like an assistant manager to the manager, and other times they become actual, managers while they are playing.
Right. He did a lot of commercials.
So.
Well, he did a Kool-Aid commercial. Sorry, off topic. I didn't realize that. He did a Skechers commercial. He did one for Nestle Crunch. I think I remember that one. And he did one for Aquafaba.
Don't remember that one. I remember the Kool-Aid one because I remember he was like straightening the pictures in his hallway.
Yeah. I just think, when I think Aquafaba, I think old man. But anyway, which is pretty fitting. So,
Pete Rose was a player manager, a player, and he was caught gambling.
Okay.
Specifically, he was accused of betting on baseball, which is a giant no-no. Okay? So, the gambling rules in baseball. The number one priority is that you can't bet on games, and you specifically can't bet on your own games.
Okay.
That was like the first gambling rule.
Which betting on your own games makes sense because you actually have a clout in how it could turn out.
Right. So the first gambling rule after the Black Sox was you cannot bet on your own games.
Okay. Perfect sense.
Okay. Then they started layering them, and then it became you can't bet on, your own league.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
You can't bet on baseball.
In general. Okay.
And then you can't gamble at all. Now, that part of the rule is something that is still debated because it's kind of a more unspoken part of the rule.
Yeah.
Because technically, and Eli might be able to correct me if I'm wrong for the baseball, I know in other sports they have no gambling rules, but if they're like playing football but they're gambling on NASCAR, they don't have a problem with it.
That was going to be my question. Like, is it in all sports or just your sport?
Yeah, just your sport, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But when something comes up and they find out that this guy was gambling on other things, especially if he's not gambling through like Vegas and through regular casinos,
like a sports book or something.
When you're gambling with the local bookie,
right,
that's not quite above board.
Right,
they have massive issues no matter what you're gambling on because that's what got the White Sox in trouble. And gambling at the time was only controlled by local bookies, i.e. the mob. Right. So now if you're, gambling with a local bookie and you are on, in the major red with them, they have problems because now that person could be like, look, I can either break your kid's legs or you can throw these games for me. Right.
Those are your choices.
So
can't help you on any other things.
But when you're gambling through like the major gambling casinos and things, they don't, as long as it doesn't appear to be a problem for you, they're not really looking for you.
I wonder what they do if you can't pay your debt that way.
Like most regular casinos.
Yeah, or like if you go through like a Vegas.
Yeah.
Like what do they do if you like end up in such the red?
They won't.
Since they can't break your legs.
They won't let you gamble after a certain amount of time and a certain amount of money that you've lost.
Okay.
And just like every place else, they send you to collections.
I was just about to say that. You go to collections for your gambling debt.
So, because they're a true business at this point. So,
true. When you can, like, turn on the TV for any sporting events and see a Caesars commercial, I was like, I remember when betting was just so taboo.
Well, and it used to be that you had to go to Vegas just to do that, and now almost every state, in fact, Ohio will have sports gambling on January 1st.
That's right. I forgot about that.
So, for 20 years, Pete Rose denied betting on baseball. He said, I gambled on every other sport under the sun.
Right.
I gambled on everything else under the sun. I gambled on whether or not the Queen would wear a pink dress to Easter.
Oh, my God. He had a problem.
There are line bets like that wherever you go, right?
Of course there is. That doesn't surprise me whatsoever.
So, you watch the Oscars. In Vegas, there are bet lines as to not only who's going to win the major awards.
Yeah.
But who's going to say something they shouldn't on stage. Or...
That's so absurd.
If Beyonce or J-Lo's up for a Grammy, how revealing are their dresses going to be?
People will bet on anything.
There are like over-unders for how long the longest speech is going to be.
Oh my God.
So...
Humanity, come on, man. Step it up a notch.
So, he was doing those types of things. He was like, I don't know. I don't think anybody saw it coming, but there probably could have been an over-under as to whether or not anybody gets punched on stage at the Oscars.
Now there's really going to be one.
There will be from now on. Maybe not specific names, but your vote, your
right.
gambling against whether there is or is not
some kind of altercation.
An altercation.
My goodness. Anywho.
So he admits he had a problem.
Yeah, he's what those phone numbers are meant for that they rattle off at the end of every commercial.
Most recently, he has admitted to both betting on baseball and his own games.
So I wonder why he denied it for so long. Just to be like, at the end of the day, yeah, I did it.
I think he's come through to say it. So actually, he actually does say that he never bet against the Reds. He always, when he bet on his own games, he bet for his team.
Okay. Fair enough, I guess.
I think he came around to saying and admitting that those were the things that he did because the talk has been that if he ever wants any hope of being able to get into the Hall of Fame, he has to be honest with baseball and with the fans and everything else.
Right, and just what you did.
Because people were really pushing to get him in with an asterisk, just like Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa have asterisks next to their names.
Like, they're in here.
Jose Canseco has an asterisk next to his name. Anybody who is caught with a PED has an asterisk. Originally, if you were caught, you were supposed to not be able to get in.
Right.
But I believe Canseco was one of the first ones because he was so good at the beginning of his career, and again, he got caught with the PEDs at the end of his career.
Yeah.
And they were really looking at, like, the total body.
Versus, like, this last few years when he was really crazy good. Yeah.
So, and he was crazy good when he was a young player.
Okay.
And he had started to slip off, and he was taking, and you could tell that he was doing something more than just a vitamin regimen.
Yeah.
To become.
Ain't no vitamin that good. Flintstones vitamins don't get you there.
10 million strong and growing.
I was actually about to jump in with Flintstone kids, 10 million strong
and growing. You started it. Don't ding it. You started it. And you know what? Sidebar. Ding yourself, sir, because your phone went off while you were gone.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Go ahead, ding. Now that business has been handled.
So I was actually explaining to everybody, actually, as I was talking about Pete Rose, about player managers, because we forgot to talk about that with the clubhouse. I told her it doesn't happen as often anymore, as far as I know. It used to be a more popular thing that would happen.
Yeah.
And I'm just double checking with you, Eli. Was Cal Ripken maybe one of the last ones that actually became like a player manager for a year?
No.
No?
No. Cal Ripken was never a player.
He wasn't?
No.
Okay.
I thought he was like one of the ones that would have been.
He would have been. I mean, it's Cal Ripken Jr.
I'm fairly certain his dad was. But
So is that just a like graceful way for them to retire? From
it's
being
a
a player,
way for them to slide into management.
Okay. So let me ask this question: was Pete Rose a good player?
He was.
Okay.
He was a really good player.
I was curious
He was
about that.
He was Hall of Fame level.
So if he hadn't had all this drama, it wouldn't have been an argument of whether he would have got in. He earned his spot, but because of all this,
because of the gambling rules, he is ineligible for life.
That's crazy. I wonder, because it just seems like things change so quickly. Maybe there'll be, as the younger generations take over, there might be he did it, but he was still a good player in his day. Let's give him his due for that piece. With the asterisks. Exactly.
Again,
slippery slope, though. I can see it.
He now admits that he did gamble on baseball, that he gambled on the Reds, but he still is very adamant that he never gambled against his own team.
Yeah.
Which is like the cardinal sin of sports betting.
Right.
If you're on a team, you never bet against your own team.
I guess there's an argument to be made for that, since it doesn't seem like there's an argument that his team was clearly probably throwing games, or like he had players that were clearly not playing at their best.
Right.
So that makes me believe, he probably wasn't betting against himself. He wanted them to win. So, yeah.
Yeah. So now that we've covered that, there's the one that was in the news a couple of years ago.
The most recent big scandal, I guess you could call it.
Yes. Which actually harkens back to a very old way of cheating.
Yeah.
Those little bastards.
It's a very old way of cheating, but it's a way that is very hard to prove because it's a way of cheating that requires a team effort.
Right. And that's a lot of people to get coordinated.
Well, you either need the team or the coaching staff or management or sometimes all three of them to be in sync on this idea in order for it to work. And that is sign stealing. Mm-hmm. So if you remember back many, many shows ago, we talked about how, the coaches are on the sidelines.
Doing a Macarena. Mm-hmm. I want to do it, whatever.
Hey, Macarena. Aye!
You have to finish that, because then you just feel like you left it incomplete.
You always have to have the IE in there.
Exactly. Hey, I was actually over here doing it. She just filled in the gap for you. You couldn't see my movements, so she filled it in for me.
So, all of those are signs on different things to do.
Right.
Okay? Just like the number of fingers that the catcher wiggles around in between his legs.
Sounds so dirty.
I know, it sounds incredibly dirty. But anyway, it's baseball. What do you want?
True. I couldn't help myself.
The catcher is crouched as low as you can.
Yeah.
With his legs spread. So, he's got his fingers in between his legs, flashing signs to the pitcher.
Right.
Different fingers, different combinations of fingers means different types of pitches to the pitcher. Mm-hmm. Those are all signals.
Okay.
So any of those signals are potentially things that other teams are looking at.
Right.
To try to get an advantage.
And I would imagine, we talked about that on the last show, you have to change those signals every once in a while, because after so long, if you keep doing the same ones, clearly those things will start to line up and match up, and people, without even trying, will be like, that's what that pitch is.
Well, it really depends. We see a lot more on TV than you do when you're in the ballpark.
Ah, okay. Because the camera's right there.
So the cameras are at optimal angles. Mm-hmm. Remember, for every sporting event, the cameras, generally speaking, are at optimal angles to catch what television has determined to be the most engaging part of the game.
Okay. Makes sense.
So there's a camera that's angled over the pitcher's shoulder straight to home plate. Mm-hmm. If you're at home and they're showing things, if there's nothing else for them to show, there's not, some crazy guy up in the stands dressed as the Green Lantern, or, my favorite was when we had Grady, there was always some guy up in the stands that had a red skeleton sign.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
So they would always pan over to him.
Yeah.
Or, whatever, if there was not something going on for them to look at, or there's not, the outfielders yelling and making faces at each other or whatever.
Does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, they're out there.
They're probably
I told you the center
bored.
fielders get so bored.
It's like that little kid who sits in the grass and starts picking at the grass.
That is usually your center fielder in the T-ball, okay?
Yeah.
Because
they have nothing to do. Right.
There's a reason why in the peanut strips that Charlie Brown, Peppermint Patty always made Charlie Brown the center fielder.
Yep. And you know what? It's funny. I never picked that up, and I was like, oh, it makes so much sense. Okay. Poor Charlie Brown. Go ahead.
Poor Charlie Brown. The girls on that strip were kind of mean to him.
They were jerks. Those were so straight up jerks. I.e. Lucy was the worst of all of them.
But I was going to say maybe that needs to become another nickname of Eli's now, but, he's about to ding us.
Right.
So,
moving on. Sorry, Chuck.
Because we're so mean to him sometimes.
Sorry, Chuck.
So, if there's not other things for them to show, they'll sometimes show the catcher. Or if it's been a really long selection process between the pitcher, a long conversation and signals between the pitcher and the catcher.
Well, does that happen a lot? They're just dragging it out because they just cannot come to an accord.
It does sometimes. Again, I know that there have been some rule changes for this year on some things in order to try to speed the game up.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, if the catcher has been given a list of pitches from the coaches, looks over at the sideline, the coach tells him what 3 pitches to, send out. He sends out one, and the pitcher goes, no. So the catcher sends out another one, and the pitcher goes, no. He sends out the 3rd one, and the pitcher goes, no. And the catcher sends out the pitch he knows that nobody wants the pitcher to throw.
Right.
And the pitcher goes, uh-huh. And he's like, no.
At some point, the catcher's got to be like, dude, come on.
So what happens is that generally the pitcher knows that he's having a particular type of day, right? Mm-hmm. So he knows that maybe he doesn't have his slider today.
Right.
But the catcher knows that this batter is really good at hitting the fastballs.
Right.
At hitting them out of the park.
Oh.
But maybe the pitcher only wants to throw his fastball that day. Right.
Tricky.
So there's lots of things going on there. So sometimes on TV they'll actually show that angle.
Okay.
And you'll get to see some of those finger movements, okay? That's the only way I knew about all the finger movements. That and, like I said, watching the baseball movies.
Right.
It's very hard as a participant in the game to get the right angle to see those types of things to know what kinds of pitches are coming.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because if you think about it, your team is either on the first baseline or the third baseline. Mm-hmm. You ain't got anybody out in center field.
Right.
And if you're standing on second base, you're not paying attention to what signals the catcher's giving.
You don't got time to.
You're trying to make sure that the pitcher's not paying any attention to you as you lead off from second base.
Right.
So it was always believed to be a very difficult thing to do. I know that there were teams that did it historically in the past.
Were they just accused of it or proven to have done it?
Well,
since it's so hard to prove.
What I will say is that it may not be in National League or American League history or Major League history.
Okay.
Because I didn't find documented evidence of it being during this era.
Okay.
But it has happened before in baseball play. Mm-hmm. And when we try to do the long and rambling history of baseball, we'll get into how there were several different leagues before Major League Baseball started. And how rules have changed over years, and even the shape of the field has changed.
Oh, wow. Interesting. This is going to be an interesting show.
But the thing about it is that the more difficult it is to do, the more people are watching for it.
Right.
It's one of those things that people look for only because they can't believe anybody would be audacious enough to try.
Right.
So a few years ago, the Astros were caught signal stealing.
Mm-hmm. So break down how that whole thing went.
So I can't say that I'm necessarily an expert in this scandal because I was just kind of so flabbergasted by it.
That it actually happened.
What? Because, again, you have to get everybody in your organization almost on the same page.
Right.
And the fact that any of them had plausible deniability was amazing.
Right.
And here's the other thing. They were doing it for years.
So how long had they been doing it, estimated? Because I'm sure they couldn't say, 100%. How many years they've been doing it?
2 or 3, Eli?
3 years.
3.
Wow.
Okay, so it took 3 years before they traded away somebody from their team that was even willing to say something.
Really?
And let me remind you, they did win a World Series.
I was just
within
about
those
to
3
say
years.
that.
Yeah, so they won the series while in that 3-year period of time.
Huh.
But if you think about how many people come and go from a team,
right?
either.
What kind of blood pack did you take?
Or you truly didn't you only were letting people in that you trusted and that you were never going to get rid of, quote unquote.
When the news got around the league and players starting to getting hip to it.
Yeah.
Some of the players for the Astros getting up to bat, the opposing pitchers would beam them, try to knock them down because
they would try to not necessarily beam them. No, although some of them admitted that, but a lot of them would say we're trying to brush them back off the plate.
Right. Allegedly.
Okay.
So if you're a pitcher and you're trying to brush somebody off the plate, you're literally throwing the ball within inches of their face.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it's 80 mile per hour fastball.
It's almost like
6 inches from your face.
You're gonna cheat on me. You're gonna cheat.
I'm gonna slash your tires.
You're gonna cheat that way. I'm gonna pay you back by next time you come up to bat. I'm gonna try to hit you with the ball.
Right.
So it is a lot like the Miranda Lambert song. Yes, I'm going to, cut a little hole in your tire, and I'm going to key your pretty little Jeep, and yeah.
Yeah. Oh, they were petty.
Baseball bat to headlights,
they
all
were
that.
Mad.
Well, I mean, if you think about it,
especially happened after the World Series.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
If you think about it, if I'm a player and I got a team that's stealing my signs and cheating and everything, I'm gonna try to teach you a lesson. It's like don't ever do that again.
Especially if you're the team they beat out.
Right.
To get to the World Series.
Not only that, but they were. By the time people started to get hip to it, you could tell who were the players at bat who were getting signals. And I'll explain that.
Okay. We'll back up a little bit because I was just like, wow, this is crazy. Okay, so like I said, how did it all go down? How were they devising this? I mean, we know it had to be a coordinated effort. Mm-hmm. So then what?
Okay, so we're going to start at the back end where they discovered what was going on. Okay. So once they discovered, as we were talking about, we could tell who of the players, once the word started getting around, I should say, not once it actually full news break, but once you could start to tell something was going on, you could tell which players were in on the scheme because all of a sudden you would hear from someplace behind you as a pitcher.
Yeah.
They were banging on trash cans.
From the dugout.
To let people know what pitch was coming.
Interesting.
Well, not just from the dugout, from all around the ballpark.
Right. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they could have pinpointed it if it was really the dugout.
Right.
Yeah. So they were doing it from different areas.
Yeah,
so sometimes it was somebody who was watching in an announcer's area or the scouting area.
Yeah.
And they would bang on and it would literally travel through the park.
Sometimes it was from the bullpen.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that signal could be heard in the dugout. And then the coach would
then signal,
do his little Macarena dance to let the guy know what pitch was coming.
The fact that you could it's almost like a smoke signal. Like that you could make that. It's like the telephone game.
In fact, in the old Bugs Bunny cartoons, there was a baseball game where they used smoke signal.
I feel like I remember that.
So it was like the guy's cigar. He would blow certain rings for certain things.
That's nuts.
I mean, it's not an unheard of idea, right?
Right.
So it was, Bugs Bunny cartoons were made back when baseball players would smoke cigars while playing.
Yes.
But just, for those of you who are a little young and don't know these things. But yes, they came up with different drum beats on the trash can to indicate different pitches coming, or even to indicate if the pitcher wanted to walk, if they wanted to walk a batter.
Oh, wow. Got that deep.
And I'm sorry to cut you off, but in the 2018 divisional series against us, they said that Cleveland Indians caught an Astros employee taking pictures of their dugout.
Yeah.
during the AL Divisional Series.
Wow.
So, as I was saying to you before the show, and when we were talking about it, part of the way that they learned the signals where they were sending scouts out to games before of the next series opponents,
right,
and taking pictures of and learning, and they were going in as fans.
I was about to say you had to go into disguise. Clearly, I'm not wearing an Astros shirt.
Correct.
Yeah. They were going in as fans. They weren't even wearing business suits from the front office or anything. They were just going in. They were buying. If there are. Some fields have center field seating, and so they would buy tickets there if that's an option available. Like the old Jacobs Field had that. I can say that
it's history. History can use old names.
Okay, I'll let that slide.
Golly, you just be ready.
Besides the fact that Progressive Field now has standing room areas over there, it's not seating. But yes, they would, purchase center field seating where they could, or they would try to get, as close to being able to see those signals as possible.
Right. So that means somebody has binoculars, which isn't unusual to see at a baseball game, depending on where you're sitting. Wow. Okay.
Yep. And so they would sit there and they would note how many times they saw whatever gesture from the catcher. And what pitch was then thrown.
Oh.
And they usually had the radio play-by-play in their ear so that they could hear. That was supposed to be a slider, but...
Interesting.
Right. So, if a pitch goes off, or, a breaking ball doesn't break. So you can tell by the way the pitcher catches up. If the pitcher or the catcher sets up way low, it's probably going to be a breaking ball. And if he's set up way low and then he comes up to catch it, you can tell that was one that it wasn't supposed to be a fastball.
Yeah, but it became
a fastball or a slow ball. So they took all those notes and they would compile them.
Wow.
And you could see actually the system getting better and better over those years, and that's why they got that World Series.
Right.
Because when the system first started, they were still figuring out all the...
Because let me think about it. That means you have to send somebody to every game, every other team's games that you play against for I don't even know how long to really learn what those signals were.
Right. At least a 3-game series.
Right.
And yeah. So...
Wow.
And they got better and better at perfecting, who was going to send the signals and what signals meant what and how fast the signals had to be sent. So, how long could they be? Could you literally do, shave and a haircut, cubits? Or does it have to be more tap, 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 tap?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So
it's like learning how to play an instrument. Is it 4/4? Is it 16/4? I don't know if that's an actual count music, but you know what I mean.
Or more of...
No, Gina.
You could have let that go.
It's 3-4-4-4.
You know what I meant. Anyway.
3-4-4-4 4/16 is a actual musical thing, yes. And there's 16/30 seconds as well.
Ha! Bazinga! Bazinga!
Sorry, my father was a classical pianist.
Don't be sorry, because he couldn't wait to ding me on that one.
So anyways,
totally made you lose your train of thought.
Well, no, because part of me wants to go back to him and be like, but you only get these time signatures and blah 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 blah.
No,
but we're not doing a music show.
Right. That's another Wait What episode another day.
We are doing the scandals. So basically, it was about how many beats could you get in fast enough
to get the signal,
and each pitcher has a different amount of time they take between pitches once they get the call they want.
Right.
So you have some guys that they get the call and they're set there and they literally 3, 2, 1 pitch.
Boom. Okay.
There are other guys that will sit there and twitch over their shoulder to second base for 5 minutes.
You said that like that makes you angry. 5 minutes.
It doesn't really. I mean, when it's called for,
yeah,
You have Ken Griffey Jr.
You are not taking your eyes off second base.
You are not taking your eyes off second base or possibly even third base.
Yeah, that's fair.
You have Matt Williams out there. You have Jim Thome out there.
Yeah.
You have Albert Bell out there. There is no reason for you to go, nyeh, 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 and look over your shoulder 30 million times.
Right. He's not
you
going anywhere. Okay.
That's just your Tourette's. Okay.
That's your OCD kicking in.
Yes. So that's your OCD. That's your tick. That's your thing. And there are some pitchers that's just their thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a guy that will like shake out one leg and then shake out the other leg and then get set.
Oh wow.
And then look over his shoulder and then look at his pitcher again.
Man, they get like a whole routine.
It really is. I mean, we make fun of golfers sometimes with like butt wiggles and whatever, but batters are the same way. As we talked about, at one point, like they walk up, they kick the dirt off their cleats.
They fiddle with their gloves.
Yeah, they fiddle with their gloves. They tap their hat.
Right.
All of that. Pitchers are the same way.
Okay.
They have little things that they do, and some of it is like they have to do things in a particular way, and they've probably had to do these things since they were like 12. Okay?
Yeah.
Otherwise, in their head, they're not set to pitch yet.
Got it. So it's a psych game for themselves.
As well as
their opponent. Okay. Makes total sense.
So you have to know if you're watching a pitcher who's going to bam, you have to get those cheat signals off as fast as possible.
Okay.
If you've got a guy that takes forever to set up, you can get those signals a little slower.
Right. I mean, you still want to get it over there, but you don't have to rush.
The other thing is, they were only giving those signals for certain batters on the team that were part of the scheme.
Oh,
so it wasn't every single batter that was coming up because they knew if they did it every single batter,
it would be too obvious.
Somebody would catch on real quick that they're hearing from some place that they don't know where it's supposed to be coming from.
Exactly.
A little bit harder to necessarily tell in our stadium because we have our drum guy.
Yeah, so that's very common.
But our drum guy has a particular rhythm that he uses as well.
That's true.
So he does not ever drum anything other than his boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
That's all he does. You will never hear him go boom, 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 boom.
Right. So that would be like, everybody's looking around like, who's beating on a drum like that?
So, that was like the basics of what they were doing. I can't, I'm sure
there's a lot more like specific, almost science, because it's a science, it sounds like, to really do that right.
And a science. And like I said, think about how many guys probably left that team.
Knowing that this was happening.
Or possibly not knowing.
Yeah.
So think about how much investment you have to put into who you're trusting and who you're not.
Because you're trusting both player personnel and non-player personnel. Because somebody who's not a player is out there in the stadium somewhere.
You've got people from management.
Right.
Usually the scouting department. I believe most of the people that were out there doing the stealing were actually from the scouting department.
Okay.
Which meant that they weren't actually going to the college games and scouting
like
college
they said
players
they were.
like they said they were. They are going to a tribe game. They are going to
Cheating
a Marlin game.
Cheating bastards.
And you don't like the Astros anyway.
Can't stand them.
So, you've got people that are very used to watching players for their ticks and for their stats. So they're very good at taking those types of notes.
Those are the perfect people to sit for that.
And then you've got people from that department as well who are then in the stands on the game day that you're playing these opposite teams, who are radioing the signals in and whatever, and it was, going down the wire. Maybe it was somebody in your broadcast team that was watching the camera feed from over the pitcher's shoulder.
Right.
You're not supposed to have somebody that's specifically doing that.
However.
But if you've got somebody and they're willing to give them a kickback in order to just watch that feed, then maybe that's, I can't honestly say because I did not fully pay attention to all the things about this.
Right.
But
I feel like there was a lot to unpack to really be able to pay attention to all of it.
Well, I mean, I think it would have taken a lot more concentration than just watching the games. And so you've got, all of that going on. You've got the coaches. In fact, the coach, the skipper, the manager was the one who came up with the whole thing.
Really? So, okay, what was the consequence to him? Or to the what was the consequences to the people involved in this? Like, what happened to everybody?
Dr. Robinson, do you remember all of the...
I think some players got fined, and I believe A.J. Hinch, who was the manager of the Astros then, I believe he got relieved of his duties.
I figured you would have to get fired for something like that.
And I believe the owners also wound up having to pay a fine, even though they had plausible deniability.
Yeah, they did have to pay a fine.
Because... even though you have plausible deniability, the fine probably wasn't as much because of that plausible deniability.
Yeah.
But you have to take responsibility for the employees under your...
Exactly.
Just kind of like, if you're doing something stupid on your job and you get hurt and OSHA investigates and finds that, you were doing something that was against OSHA regulations, your company is still going to get fined for that because they allowed you to do something against OSHA regulations.
Yeah.
So, it's sort of like that. So
is there World Series win with an asterisk now? Like
no.
And there's no talk about taking away their World Series win?
No. There was a little bit of scuttlebutt about that.
Okay.
When everything happened.
Okay.
But because you could not say that they still would not have won an average of all of those games without the stealing.
You can't say.
You can't vacate it because of the way the games are played.
Yeah. But in the court of public opinion.
Overall, the Astros have a blemish.
Yeah.
So
I would say a rather big one.
So
that's so interesting. Wow.
There are some of the more memorable cheating scandals.
Till the next one comes out, because something's in the works. There's always something in the works. Somebody's like, oh, can't do it this way. Now we got to find a new way to cheat.
So we want to thank you guys for listening to us ramble on again. And we do know that we rambled because Eli left the room for a little while. And,
he had
there was
no control over that section.
There was nobody here to ding us. So
Yeah. Although I have to say, we stayed on topic.
For the most part. So thank you for listening to us today. We really do need to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
Because we need to make sure that we're going in a direction that you like and you enjoy.
Right.
And if there's things that you want us to tweak or change or whatever, we are completely open to suggestions. So you can reach out to us again. It's Gmail is...
www22sports@gmail.com. Instagram, _what_sports. Facebook, Wait What Sports. Twitter, www.sports22. So a whole bunch of different ways to go about reaching out. And we still want to get your movie suggestions. We know movies we want to see because more than likely either Eli or Amy have already seen these movies, and it's just movies I haven't seen yet. But there's a ton of sports movies on every topic. Which, by the way, Adam Sandler is finally doing a basketball movie that is not a comedy. We saw that when we went to go see Top Gun. I was like, look at Adam, trying to be a serious actor. All right, I'm not mad at him.
Well,
he's old too now, so he can't do all that craziness no more anyway.
I do know that our first movie is going to be A League of Their Own.
Yes.
Because we do plan to do a show on the Women's League.
Mm-hmm.
And we also are planning to do a show for Larry Doby Day.
Yes.
On Larry Doby, Jackie Robinson, and the Negro Leagues.
Which is going to be really interesting. We got
look at Dr. Robinson giving us 2 thumbs up.
He's like, this is going to be great.
So we want to hear from you guys about anything that you think we need to do differently or that you enjoy so that we keep doing it because, you know, we don't want to stop doing something just that you guys enjoy.
Right. And at the end of the day, you know, we get stuff from the show, but the show is really for you. It's for you. So make it what you want it to be. You know, be nice. I'll leave it at that. We all know what that means nowadays. Be nice. But please hit us up. And until next time, on behalf of myself, Amy, and Dr. Robinson, we'll see you next time.